cover story conversation. Today we are going to be debating the legacy of Prime Minister Modi. Election season is almost here, whether it's the assembly elections or then after that the Lok Sabha elections. This is really a time where we look at the tenure, and in his case, it's 9+ years, and see what has he brought to the table. What will he be fighting the election on? Will it be just the Prime Minister and what he stands for? Then in this case, we really need to find out what has been his big ticket improvement for the country. Has it been to put India on the global map as the Vishwaguru, as he prides? Has it been the ultimate Hindu Hridaya Samrat? Sorry for that Freudian slip. Or, in terms of economy, in terms of social harmony, what has he brought to the table for the country? What will he be remembered with? And what is the legacy he will take to the voters? Joining me, I have an excellent panel. There is no better than Suhail Seth. He's, of course, someone who analyzes brands. He's a brand guru. He's a marketing maven. And he's also a political commentator and columnist. We will shortly be joined by Yashwant Deshmukh, also founder of and psychologist of Sea Water. But Suhail, I really want to begin with you actually on what will be, if I say Narendra Modi, what comes to mind?
Strong man.
Strong man.
Very dogmatic, very unforgiving, stubborn, and is a preserver of his own legacy. It was famously said that there are some people in the world who, when they look in the mirror, they erect their own statue. It's not a bad thing. Many of us do it. And it's not narcissism. It's the belief that they are bringing and doing good for the cause that they are representing. All said and done, Modi will be remembered for the following things. Number one, there is no question, Priya, that this is by far the most corruption-free union cabinet in the history of independent India. There are so many knives out for them within the so-called liberal media and so on. If there was even one gochi, they would have been caught out by now.
Actually, the knives are working both ways, well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will come to that.
Okay.
The second is he will be remembered for what he has done with Indian confidence. And when I say Indian confidence, don't confuse it with Indian arrogance. Today, more and more Indians are confident, whether they live in India or whether they're part of the diaspora, because they believe the country is going somewhere. Has he done it all by himself? The jury is out. I will always say that Dr. Manmohan Singh contributed a huge amount, but Modi has taken it to a completely different level. Modi has also engaged and worked harder than any prime minister in independent India, period. There is no prime minister who has worked and who works as hard as Narendra Modi, so cut him some slack. Where has he gone wrong? Of late, and this was actually begun by Lal Krishna Advani, so put the blame where it belongs. When the Rath Yatra happened, there was the need and the desire to sow seeds of divisiveness between Hindus and Muslims. That's how the Rath Yatra was positioned in the minds of the average Joe. Today, what we are seeing is that divisiveness has gone to another level. The problem that I have is not that there is divisiveness. There was divisiveness in 1947. This divisiveness is now becoming sanctionable by authority, not by the courts, but by the executive. My only problem with the Prime Minister is that why has he not come out and slammed people who have engaged in this kind of discussion, this kind of vilification of the minority communities? Having said that, and this, I'm sticking my neck out. I don't know what people like Yashwant and all will say, but I'm approaching it from a point of logic. In any democracy, any kind of appeasement is antithetical to equality. If I'm a functional democracy and I appease to the Muslims or the Christians or the Hindus or the Sikhs, it is antithetical to democracy. I can understand scheduled castes and tribes because that was a societal disorder that India had created for itself. But to continue to have that appeasement, which continued because of vote bank politics, is unforgiving. Modi has corrected that. But that correction should not come across as a threat. The correction should come across as an embrace. The problem is We now need to heal. We don't need anger. We need to embrace. We don't need to push away. And therein lies the dilemma. So, net net, he will be remembered for a lot of good. But the only issues that people will raise is कि भाई मुसलमानों के खिलाफ अत्याचार हुआ, journalists were threatened, freedom of the press was threatened. But go back to 1975, and there is no whataboutery here.
Hmm.
For God's sake, I'm not justifying today by saying, but it also happened in 1975. Khushro Irani, who ran the Statesman, famously said, the press in India is as free as it chooses to be. So if the press is on someone's payroll, they're not free. Finally, a lot has been said about the Enforcement Directorate, the Central Bureau of Investigation. My belief is that if you thwart investigative agencies from doing their job, you are willy-nilly condoning corruption. Are they targeting opposition leaders? Yes. Why are they not targeting BJP leaders? Please go to the courts, file an PIL, get the courts to issue suo motu. But you cannot stop the ED from targeting a Partho Chatterjee in whose house 73 crores in cash was found because he's opposition. Corruption cannot be condoned because you belong to a political party. Corruption must be identified because you are corrupt. That's
Okay.
my logical analysis.
Okay. Yashwanji, welcome to this conversation. And, as I was asking Suhail, I want your take on it also. What will be the most defining legacy of Prime Minister Modi? Because now we are going in for elections. He will be fighting on brand Modi. So when I say brand Modi, what comes to mind?
Uh, I would say personally, brand Modi has a lot to do with installing confidence in an average Indian, probably in the new age. I mean, and it's not just him who has done it, but if you are talking about individually, brand Modi, I think his legacy would be to see that an average Indian dreams big on every arena, everything that he or she is capable of, that there is something, some larger goal, something which has to be achieved and one can achieve it in that way. Largely, I am very, very sensitive about India being a graveyard of sorts for entrepreneurship. I hope Suhail agrees with me. Any
Absolutely.
first generation entrepreneur, it is literally impossible to start a business in India if you are not born and if you are not inheriting any capital. I genuinely believe that this mudra loan thing creates a culture of entrepreneurship in India, particularly among women. And if that happens, and that too particularly in the north of Vindhyas, I believe that would be the single biggest contribution of Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister of India, if that actually happens in the long term future. Of course, there would be things on the negative side, which Suhail has so rightly pointed out, that would be always there. I mean, come to think of it, we are still discussing plus and minus of Pandit Nehru in this country after 75 years. So every individual down the history will be kind of taken in good, bad, and ugly in all sort of things. And there would be people who would be on this side of the rope, that side of the rope, and they're saying what has gone wrong. But we all know for sure that nobody is completely right and nobody is completely wrong. There are, when you are in that point of chair, when you are in a decision making position, the things you decide, the things you do under that kind of tremendous pressure, is something to experience if only you are there. So yeah, all in all, there are going to be debates around everything. What I believe I would consider as one of the failures of his legacy, or not personally his failure, but maybe the people around him or whatever. I genuinely believe even today that he won the 2014 and 2019 mandate purely on the agenda of development.
Yes.
But that has been so damn confused by many of the strategists or around or think people who might be around him, that the base of that agenda was communal polarization. which I refuse to believe, I refuse to accept that. Yes, there is a Hindutva vote bank. That vote bank has been there evidently since the 80s, but I genuinely, again, if you go through the history of Indian elections, which actually go beyond the history of 1947 and 52 onward, 1926 election, 1936 election, and so on. The Indian elections, if you talk about the history, the politics of polarization was in the roots of the formation of this country. So it would be foolish to assume that one fine day, 15th of August 1947, when we were born as a free country, and we decided we will be a country for everyone, not as a country for one particular religion. This country was partitioned on the basis of religion. There would be people who would be sensitive on that, and 75 years is too short a duration when you talk about a new country being formed and going along with the kind of history and the luggage that we carried during the partition. So everything has to be seen from a perspective. There was a Naram Dal, Garam Dal within the Congress, Priya. We know that. That's part of our history. There were right wing within the Congress. Yes, Congress was a big umbrella. Post partition, post independence, that umbrella kind of refused to take along emotions and sentiments of that side. So there was always a wide opening, as I miscall, to anybody to come in and score. Say, for example, in Telangana politics, it was BJP's politics asking for a separate Telangana. Under that 99 combination with TDP, BJP gave it on a platter to, and that's where the TRS came in. TRS came in first. The formation of TRS was because BJP gave up the idea of Telangana. So these are the things. I mean, I'm just trying to go back and forth in the time. But each individual and each legacy has to be seen in totality of sorts.
Okay. No, and in fact, before I come to Suhail, it's interesting because one of the Congress leaders on my show said, when the BJP, they fought the election, the username was development, but the password was Hindutva. So what you said about development with the whole baggage of Hindutva, I'm going to come back and take a quick break and come back and come to Suhail on this whole baggage of the past. Even Suhail hinted to it when he talked about that, appeasement politics ho gaya, and now is the time to, move away maybe. This is what led to the majoritarianism feeling insecure. But I'm going to come back to you in a quick break. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation. Today we're debating the legacy of Prime Minister Modi, the legacy that he will, it's a continuing legacy before the, trolls call me out, but what he will take to the voters in the next elections. Suhail, to come back to you, you talked a bit about the politics of appeasement that was also weighing us down, and Yashwantji also referred to that. So taking off from there.
I always believe that ultimately people want only two things in life: food on the table and livelihood of dignity. They aren't looking for a third thing. They want equal opportunities. Many times in lectures abroad and here, I've been asked, why is India poor? I said, poverty exists in every nation. Our poverty is the impoverishment of opportunities. When we deny equal opportunities to people, when my brothers and sisters in villages don't have the basic facilities of schools, where schools are built without teachers, where there is no potable drinking water, where, many years ago, I was tasked by the National Literacy Mission to check out why girls weren't going to school after, attaining puberty, because there were no women-only toilets. We cannot, as a democracy, have this level of inequality or claim to be a 3, 5, 10, $20 trillion economy when our base is still not sorted. So I think the challenges are not as far as religion is concerned. And let me tell you one thing. When Mr. Vajpayee led that coalition, and you were, very close to him, when he led the coalition, that was a coalition based on Raj Dharma, where the dharma was related to Raj. It wasn't related to your dharma, as it were. We need to come back to that. And I think the Prime Minister has his heart in the right place. The problem is, कहनी और करनी में जो अंतर है वो आज दिख रहा है. जो ये कर रहे हैं वो ये कहते नहीं, और जो वो कहते हैं वो कर नहीं सकते. You cannot have a situation where you continue to belittle people because of who they are and where they belong, or because they disagree. Narayan Murthy of Infosys famously said, you can disagree without being disagreeable. It's not that if Priya Sahgal disagrees with the establishment, she's branded anti-national. My nationalism cannot be questioned by my desire to dissent. My nationalism must be questioned by my desire to do. And if I'm a true nationalist and a true patriot, my heart will bleed for the country, but it will also be angry when the country is not doing what is right for every citizen. I think that is the assessment that these people need to understand. By the way, including the opposition. This has been the most irresponsible opposition in post-independent India that you have ever seen. It is an opposition which opposes, it is an opposition which heaps abuse, and it is an opposition which mocks progress. When you mock progress, you mock India and every Indian.
But also, Yashwati, I know you want to comment on what Suhail said, but also this whole thing of, we talk about Modi and Suhail in another conversation that we called him Indira Gandhi 2.0. Everybody, that comparison has been made often. So what is it about Indians that we like autocratic leaders? Indira Gandhi was one of the more popular prime ministers, as is Narendra Modi. That's one thing people, do we like being told what to do? Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't use the term autocratic leaders. I would use the term strong leaders, decisive leaders. People, particularly,
my first word was strong man.
Strong man. That's precisely. People, particularly in transitional societies, world over, they like leaders who can take decisions strongly. Who are strong and who are decisive in nature. People don't say that such people do not take wrong decisions. For example, I can give you a very, very clear and present example. One example of Mrs. Gandhi, 75 emergency imposition. People of India ensured that she even loses her in her own seat. Lok Sabha elections. Not just that Congress loses the Lok Sabha election, but Mrs. Gandhi, Sanjay Gandhi, they lost their own seat. So, but within 2.5 years, 3 years, when she said that I heard, I was wrong, I'm sorry, people elected her back. Simple. Same thing. You say, now cut down to current situation. Arguably, I guess, the biggest policy failure of Narendra Modi was the demonetization. Everybody agrees to that. But are people saying wrong things to that? No, the people are generally saying that it was a right decision, wrongly implemented. Bande ki niyat to sahi thi. Can you believe that? The kind of hardship this country people went through because of demonetization. लोग 6-6 घंटे 10-10 घंटे लाइन में खड़े रहे, खड़े गिर गए एटीएम की लाइन में, और उसके बाद में भी सुहेल माफ करते हैं लोग.
Because there's perverse logic, Yashwant. A lot of people said, अच्छा है, काला धन निकला. People who were standing by domestic help were saying, देखो, मेम साहब और मैं अब एक हो गए हैं.
एक लाइन में खड़े हैं. Exactly. So what I'm trying to say that decisions might be wrong. Anybody can take a wrong decision, no doubt about that. But people don't see just the wrong decision the way everybody or the opposition likes them to see it in a binary way. 0 and 1, there is nothing in between. People tend to think and opine in a lot much of gray area. It's not without a reason that we call this a gray matter. I believe that we call it a gray matter because people think a lot, majority of the times in gray areas. They like to see the reason it out. They like to context. They like to see, understand in that way. And people are much wiser than actually anybody thinks them to be. That's the another fascinating point of India as a democracy is, I always say that mandates are something which are to be respected. Mandate is the cumulative wisdom of the people. that needs to be respected. And that mandate is generally coming around with a lot of gray matter, bending around in a lot of gray area. That's how I look at it.
Okay, final question to both of you. Well, his weakness has been the economy. One can, find gray areas on it. But will that override, with Modi's popularity, override the economy? Because last elections before Fulwana happened, we were talking about the economy and he was in some troubled waters. Then, of course, nationalism took over. So, Sohail, how can he handle this big ticket question?
I'm not, to be fair, as far as the economy is concerned, the only worrying area is the whole issue of jobless growth. Jobless growth happens in any economy that moves from developing to developed. And it happens because of the pulls and pressures. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Let me stick my neck out. The next Prime Minister of India will be Narendra Damodar Das Modi. Reason being, he is immensely popular. He's engaged with the idea of tomorrow's India, and people believe in him. As Yashwant said, even I'm telling you, I criticized him during the COVID when we ran short of respirators and oxygenators. Nothing stuck. He has the ability to bounce back. In the absence of an opposition which is both cohesive and communicating, he's a sure winner.
Yashwant, your take on the fact that nothing sticks on him at the end of the day. Is the economy will override that roadblock also?
Well, I'm not an economist in that way, but I did raise a red flag after the wave 2 and 6 months down the lane when I realized that Indians who are eternally optimist, and at that point of time in 21, last quarter of 21, when this optimism level fell down a certain degree, where people were more kind of passive and more looking, answering as don't know, can't say about the future. And I have written that this is a cause of worry because Indians, they live on optimism. Optimism is their oxygen in that way. So that was then. But today I can tell you that regardless of what the economy or the inflation other numbers are, I see record level of optimism in this country. And that probably, Suhail has explained that probably. I can kind of relate to that people are not just optimistic about their own things. Somehow, parents have started looking out for the future of their kids in that way. It is kind of a very, weird analysis that when a person is started thinking about the next generation of sorts and what kind of India we are looking at, what kind of India we are building into, and whether my kids are going to have a great future in this society or not. So, and I'm talking about from the economic perspective right now. Somehow that optimism is very high. People might find it really hard to understand why it is high. Because, when the inflation is high, how can the optimism be high? But no, it is high. And yes, I agree with Suhail that it's boiled down to trustworthiness. At this point of time, people, the trustworthiness factor of Narendra Modi, all our polls show, are remarkably way ahead of all other options that are available. So, yes, the numbers are showing what it is going to be, but numbers are also showing some cautionary because we did run a poll after Bidhuri episode, and I wrote about it as well, and it was taken up for so many channels, that overwhelming majority was upset. Overwhelming majority of even the BJP supporters were upset what happened on the floor of the parliament. And more worrying was when we asked the people, do you think that BJP, people said that yes, the action should be taken, but we also asked, do you think that BJP will take an action against Bidhuri, Mr. Bidhuri? Bigger majority said, no, they do not think that. So I think that's the line of worry, that's the line of concern. I believe people are giving mandate. Yes, the BJP's ideological base is in Hindutva, But the mandates of 14 and mandates of 19 were delivered because of the developmental agenda and the hope and optimism. Why dilute it in that way? Even the BJP supporters are asking that this is going a bit way too beyond, and we should not be going in that direction. So I hope the PM listens to it and does something about it.
Okay, quickly. I know, Sahil, you have to go. So one last question to you, and then I will take it from Yashwan. Is it true that Modi ko harayega? He's saying there is no other competition. It is him, his factor. So he can only dent his own image. Quick, short answer, then I will let you go.
No, it won't happen. It happens in plays. It happens in the movies. It won't happen. He's far too clever. He's far too much of a strategist. And it is an unassailable lead between him and the next person. I don't think that'll happen. And you will see many, many quaint, many quirky course corrections that he will also indulge in. Please remember, the guy is a chess player. And, chess players keep their moves to themselves. They don't advertise their moves. So that's what he is. That's how he is. He's not a guy who's going to say, "Main yatra pe jaunga, main yahan jaunga, main wahan jaunga." Remember one thing, great minds only live through two things, strategy and surprise. That's the essence of great minds. Steve Jobs had that. Rabindranath Tagore had that. I'm not saying Narendra Modi had, but he's exactly at that level. Gandhi had that. Mahatma Gandhi had that. Not Rahul.
Yeah. I figured that. So Yashadi, your take on this, kya Modi ko harayega? Will he, his own image, will he not live up to the hype?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more on the chess player analogy that Sahel has given, and more so because every time something happens and that surprises most of us, I tend to believe that this guy is kind of already thought of the 10 next moves while we are dealing with his first move over here,
Correct.
So nothing goes unplanned. He's a meticulous planner. He works 28 hours a day. Even the worst of the critics would give into that the guy works hard. I mean, you just cannot take that credit away from him, even though he works hard to win the election. I mean, if you want to criticize him, it's okay. But that's what politics is all about. He works hard, And on the first thing, you remember, Priya, there is a very, very classical tale about Vivian Richard. मेरे ख्याल से अगर मैं गलत नहीं सुहेल करेक्ट करना मुझे शायद इंग्लैंड की बात थी कि वहां के बॉलर ने अपने कैप्टन को पूछा जब वो फील्ड करने जा रहे थे कि विवियन रिचर्ड को हाउ शुड आई आउट हिम इन दैट वे फेस हिम, मैं कैसे इसको आउट करूं? तो इंग्लैंड के कैप्टन ने अपने बॉलर को बोला, आउट, फॉरगेट अबाउट इट, जस्ट प्रे दैट ही गेट्स बोर्ड एंड थ्रोज हिज विकेट. So every time I'm asked it, and now you are looking at Richard who just doesn't wish to throw the wicket. That's the problem, for the opposition. He is not bored.
And now he even has a stadium after him, so he doesn't need to.
To complete the analogy. But thank you both for this.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
On a good note to end on. Brand Modi still flying high. Let's see where the next ball falls. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.